Let's actually cut across to the Wipro press conference. The numbers came about an hour back.
By 1 year, over the previous quarter. And similarly, if you look at the overall growth, it has been across the industry verticals and a sequential positive growth. Healthcare, life sciences and services grew 7.5% sequentially, which has been the growth drivers for us. Energy, natural resources and utilities about 4.5% sequentially. Financial solutions and 3.1% sequentially. And continued to be growth being seen in the mined accounts, which is top 10 accounts, growing at about 3.8%, which is ahead of the company average. Like Kurian said, I think the America growth has been very good this time, 3.2% sequentially, and Europe also has grown sequentially 5.4%. India and Middle East has recovered back and now at a 5.5% sequential growth. Amongst the service lines, global IT infra, 5.6% sequential growth. That has been the growth driver for the company, but we had some mutedness over the previous few quarters, but now it has got back its growth rates. BPO also has grown very decent at about 4.1% sequentially, and similarly you have seen a little bit of coming back on the product engineering, about 3% sequential growth. And looking ahead, we expect the revenue from our IT services business to be in the range of $1,712 million to $1,745 million. We have some other additional data sheets. Please feel free to study them. And now we are open to question and answers. Thank you.
TK, hi, Chandra here from ET now. Based on the previous and the current quarter, it looks like growth is finally returning to Wipro at a rate that is in line with peers. So are you happy with the progress? Is the turnaround story complete? Secondly, I think this month you've completed 3 years at Wipro. So are you happy that the efforts that you put in the last 3 years are finally beginning to pay off, or are you a little disappointed that it's taken 3 years for this rate of growth to come?
The answer is pretty simple. I'm tired. So it's as simple as that. So let me answer that, and I think I've kind of covered it as part of my opening statement, which is that we're very happy with the results in this quarter. But having said that, I think there's a lot of work to be done even now, because for us, really what we got to do is that we have to get to a secular growth rate of 4.5%. And that's when we'll say that, we're comfortable and we're on a good trajectory. Till then, we still continue to believe that we are work in progress.
And also on the headcount, this is the second quarter in a row when your headcount has actually come down, I think by about 800 people this quarter. So, what is really happening? Is this because of the automation that you mentioned, or because of other reasons?
So there are 2 reasons behind it. One is that hyper-automation clearly is playing a role. And the second big reason that we believe is, if you look at our utilization levels continue to be pretty comfortable. So to that extent, we really don't see any pressure on headcount. We will continue to hire this year as per plan. Last year, whatever commitments we gave to folks in the campus in terms of hiring, we continue to kind of honor that. We haven't slipped on any of our commitments.
Hi, Itika from Business Standard. Mr. Senapati, my questions to you. Margins were a surprise in this quarter because broadly everybody was expecting flattish margins, and highest level in 3 years, of course, is good news. If you could just share with us what contributed to the margin growth, and also do you think that this level of margin is sustainable going forward, or could it also see some improvement further?
Clearly, I think some of these points that we've been talking about, where we're talking about standardization at the core, much more differentiation in the front end, and doing a lot of automation and hyper-automation, etc., that we've been talking about, re-engineering the entire supply chain and productivity drive that we've been doing. I think some of that has been sort of giving the impact of it, and you've seen that impact in a very decent manner in Q3. And I mean, you saw a little bit on the currency, 10 basis points, on the offshore utilization is a little minus, but I think the substantial component of the margin expansion has come through productivity improvement. As you go forward, our expectation is, in a shorter term, there may be some kind of up and down, but on a medium to long term, is this margin sustainable with a positive bias? I would say yes, on an organic basis.
Hi, this is Indu from the Economic Times. TK, my question is, apart from better demand and economy, what are some of the factors that helped you this quarter? Are you doing anything differently in terms of sales strategy or reinvesting into business? Or would you say that the recent restructuring that you all did, that's yielding better results?
The restructuring story was over a long time ago. I guess this has really been for us a quarter of execution. And frankly, as far as strategy is concerned, there is absolutely no change in the strategy that we laid out for ourselves. We're just executing. If you look at this quarter, it's kind of interesting. The US grew over 3%. Europe grew over 5%. India grew over 5%. The rest of Asia was a little bit of a letdown, but all the rest grew. If you look at our service lines, BPO grew 4%. GIS grew over 5%. Our product engineering services grew 3%. So given all that, I think what's happened is that we've had secular growth. If you look at the verticals, if you look at our vertical picture, it's kind of interesting because 3 verticals have really been firing for us. There are 2 that we expect to see firing soon, which is manufacturing and retail. So that's what gives us confidence. But we still have work to do on those 2 verticals.
Itika again. Very interesting point you just said, that restructuring story is long over for Wipro. So does that mean that the current structure that you have right now, because last quarter when we had met, you had just announced some changes and you had at that time indicated that going forward also you may consider if needed. So should we understand that the structure that remains right now is how Wipro is going to function, at least in the medium term?
So change is your friend, it's never your enemy, right? So we have to make sure that change is something that we have to live with. The structure itself is not going to change, but I think the people beneath, frankly, we have a very, very strong pipeline of leadership. It's our job to make sure that we test the leadership out at different roles as we go along. And those kind of changes would continue to happen. But we don't expect any substantive change in the near future.
Question to Mr. Senapati, Rukmani from Bloomberg TV. Suresh, just wanted to understand how much of this growth in the BPO sector has come from Opus. From the Opus acquisition, how much of your BPO growth has been fueled by that?
0.
Okay.
It's an acquisition completed, consummated only in January.
Last quarter you were quite worried about India. What happened to India suddenly that it grew so much?
I'm sorry, please repeat.
Last quarter, I think India was a big worry for you. Suddenly this quarter, India, what's made it grow?
The first quarter India was very bad. Second quarter India was not bad. Third quarter India is good. So India has kind of continued to remain around the same range. Last quarter I think it was about 3.5 to 4%. It's remained in the same range, it's 5.5. So India, in the business in India, primarily what we've been doing is 2 things. If you look at our client base, we've been focusing on private sector customers. And to that extent, we're not dependent upon very, very large government contracts, new government contracts to kickstart our growth. We have a fair bunch of government contracts that we signed off earlier. Those continue to run, but a lot of private sector contracts have come in.